Brain Fresh, we have an extra special guest today. We have Dr. Sapna Shah-Haque. Tell me, did I say that right? Do I say your name correctly? Can you please help me with your name?
Sure.
I
Sapna Shah-Haque.
Hawk, Sapna
Shah like the Shah of
Shah-Haque.
Iran and Hawk like the bird.
Got you. Perfect. Okay, how are you? Welcome.
I'm doing well, thanks. Happy to be here.
I'm honored you're here because I know you've been busy and you got some big news for us. So we're just going to start. We're going to keep people just like leave that dangling. Your
Sure.
amazing newness. We're going to get to it.
Sounds great.
Yeah, but tell me, okay, so you're only a mom, internal medicine doc,
Yeah.
wife, podcast host, now author. So, tell us about you. Tell us about your medical journey.
Sure. I, I was one of those kids that I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like,
Hmm.
I was kind of all over the board, right? And then I fell into medicine by proxy. Actually started out electrical engineering. One of my circuits actually went up in smoke because the wrong chip was in the wrong drawer. And I'm like, huh,
Whoops.
that's a really cool smoke pattern. I could care less about the circuit.
Right.
So that's when I decided, yeah, I dropped all
Hmm.
my engineering classes.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's a sign,
Yeah.
big sign, right?
Good.
Um, so at that point, I thought, what's the next best step? I got a job in a hospital, like being around sick people, and guess what? There you go.
There you go.
Decided to pursue medicine. It was cheaper to keep going to school while I was applying to medical school. So I got an MBA because what else do you do as a professional student and follow the money? Got to.
Right.
It was just the right decision at the right time. There was no other incentive besides that.
Love it.
And loved internal medicine, love the complexity, love connecting with people, and I'm I've been practicing in rural Kansas in one way or another for about the last 11 years.
You believe it? Wowza. Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. And then you started this podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I started The Worthy Physician in 2021.
Okay.
Well, 2020, 2021.
Hmm.
Started kind of growing after 2021. Um, when we are at the height of the pandemic, what really spurred all this was the death of my best friend in 2019, death by suicide in her office. And that blew my mind. Wasn't on the radar. Was really a shock to everybody. Um, and one of my biggest questions was, why in the hell would anybody do that? Like with our profession, why would anybody do that? I know it's counterintuitive, but I just didn't understand. I didn't understand the concept. She was at my son's first birthday, and she looked great. She looked happy. And then I started reading. I started reading about the suicide rates among physicians. Women are more successful than men, which is completely opposite than the statistics in the general population. Why? And then I started reading about burnout and moral injury, and then I had words to explain maybe what she was going through, what I had been going through, but not nearly to that extent. And then the pandemic happened. And from there, I just needed a platform to explore, why is this happening to great people who are the most resilient.
I'm so sorry. Sending hugs.
Thanks. Yeah, it put me in therapy for 3 years.
I'm
I'm not gonna
glad.
lie.
I'm glad. Whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
I don't even, yeah, I don't know how a person quote unquote recover. I don't think you recover from that. I mean, yeah, I'm the same in that I would want information. I would want to try to make sense of something.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we explain things, and that's probably
Right.
how we deal. But I'm also glad that there was also counselors involved. Um, I know you have young kids, and I love that they're around, and I don't mind their little voices because I have 4 kids, and I love if one little head pops up in there, it's okay with me. I and my audience, I'm sure, because we love little ones. And they're honored. We're glad they're here. I mean, I love, the full circle of life. I was just sharing that this weekend we celebrated my mother-in-law's 90th birthday, and it's just neat to go through the circle of life and to watch her grandkids and greats, and be able to get up and talk about the importance of family and love and just supporting each other. And I think that circles back to your friend and why you started the podcast. It's just love. Like at work, we're a sense of a family. It's not my family at work, but it's a sense of a family in that the way I see it is to support each other, to be in tune to each other, to physically care for each other. I mean, we spend a lot of time at work, don't we? So, what was your mission with the podcast?
It was to start to normalize the conversation, and I think the pandemic really brought that forefront to the forefront. It was a
Mhm.
straw that broke the camel's back, and I really I love the momentum that is coming out of it. A lot of grassroots, a lot of positivity, and we work in a broken healthcare system. We can all agree on that, and we all have different solutions on how to fix it or how to fix our own microcosm. And it went from trying to look at why is physician suicide and burnout happening to kind of a mix of physician stories, and then also having different conversations that were not taught in medical school, like, okay, how do you talk with a C-suite? How do you um, undo the the brain connections that are made in medical school uh, to not like drink the Kool-Aid of perfectionism and debunking the arrival fallacy. So we have it's difficult conversations, but now it's transitioned to reigniting the humanity and passion for medicine, because I think we really lose ourselves while going through medical school and residency. And not everybody does, but it's you have to conform to a certain mentality, you have to conform to a certain culture. Otherwise, it's really hard to fit in, right? You can never be wrong. You have to act like you know everything, even if you don't. You never show your weak side. You never really show too much emotion, because then you might be considered kind of flaky. And
Mhm.
it's just like, come on. So I'm not supposed to cry with my patients if I deliver bad news? That's ridiculous, right?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I do. I love that. I think I was reading a book. I'm going to have to think of the author. I'll put it in the show notes. But he was talking about like identity. And then in certain identities, there's certain taboos, like things you just don't talk about in certain cultures. And I think, yeah, there's certain taboos that, like over the years of medical education, just things you didn't talk about. Like one thing for me was as a woman in medicine, I saw there were certain things that women in medicine went through, but I didn't find a place to talk about it till I was invited into, like, as a resident, a group of women in where I worked. They had a meeting with just women doctors, and they talked about things. I was like, oh, like you were saying, like just words and a framework for issues that I see, but I knew it wasn't even Steven for everybody. And I was like, why? I need a place to talk about this. Like, if I am having a child in residency, like, how can that be fair in that residency group? And because I was of that age that I was having children in residency, or a child as a young, or still having children as a young staff, like, how is it fair to my colleagues? How does that happen? Just where can we have these conversations that I don't maybe want to work full time and want to work part time because I have to bring the children to the doctors, so, or get their hair cut, because there were times you couldn't go to the doctors outside of business hours. Now doctors work, all kind of hours. But so, yeah, I love the fact that there were certain safe places to talk about things that we just knew were taboo. We just didn't talk about them anywhere else. And even in that conversation, I remember a woman doc who was much, decades older than me. She felt very strongly that if you work part-time, it meant you weren't committed to medicine. What can you talk about that? Because I think we both work part-time and have for a while. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So my question is, what makes them think that? And part of it is that's a generational thing, I believe.
Mm,
And I respect that. I don't agree with it, but I respect it, right? Because perception's reality. Um, I've been told that in so few words, but it was a male physician who was much older than myself. And I reframed it as, I it's not that I'm not dedicated to medicine because when I'm at work, I'm 100% there.
mm-hmm.
Having said that, I am not married to my job and I don't eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like I like doing other things outside of being a physician. I like spending time with my kids. I mean, I had them for God's sake. I they're awesome. So of course I'm going to want to be around my family and my friends and explore other areas that make me feel human and not so much like a robot.
I love that. Yeah. So over the years, you've done a lot of interviews with folks over. Do you know how many interviews on your podcast? You have how many podcast
Ooh.
episodes, I suppose is.
Over 130.
Oh my
So
gosh. Isn't
some
that
of them are
amazing?
solo, and
Yeah.
I have interviewed non-physicians,
Yeah.
but I mean I'd say the majority is about probably close to 100
That's amazing.
individuals, majority physicians. So
And do you see themes, like things that we don't talk about enough through these interviews? Have you come across these taboo subjects, or maybe that they are out more with after COVID and things, or what are your thoughts about that?
I think that what you've described is very similar. That we don't talk about, like we don't show vulnerability, or there's some that's a taboo, uh, not necessarily topic, but state of being.
Hmm.
And I think that there are some things that, yeah, going part time has been kind of taboo for some, and um, for me, it was the only way I would stay in medicine. So potato, potato.
Hmm.
But one one common theme that I have found is that when you start to realign with your core values, and we've talked about that in your uh, WAG group, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Which was awesome.
Thank
And
you.
when you align with your core values, you start to make decisions that fall in line with those, and then that is, in personal life, work life, etc. Because you start to become interconnected again. And so I find that if we try to piecemeal everything out, like my mental health does not affect my physical health and vice versa, that's just bollocks, and we can't separate that out. So the same with addressing every kind of holistic need, like we talk with our patients, we need to address that ourselves. So once we realize that and turn that perspective inward, in spite of working in a dysfunctional medical system, again, it's not the physician's fault. We work in a in a bad system, but it's not going to be fixed today or tomorrow. So uh, we need to really design our decisions around what's important to us.
I love that. Well, I think that's a perfect segue for the new workbook. Tell us about it. Oh, you're still muted. Unmute. Yell it from
Sorry
the
about
rooftop.
that.
There we go. No worries.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell us about it.
So I had joined your uh, WAG, right? And I would highly recommend it. And the biggest thing was with this information of really getting down to core values and really trying to pick up those lost pieces of ourselves. How do we do that? And because there's a difference between a lot of times what we hold true and what medicine holds true, and there's some overlap. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in it. Having said that, how do we reconcile? And we go into medical school traditionally at a pretty impressionable age. We're still in our early 20s. The adult brain is still developing. So we start to drink that Kool-Aid, right? So I'm going to completely change some of my interests, some of the way I view things in order to jump through the hoops, in order to get the MD or DO, and then get the residency of my choice, and maybe the subspecialty, and then get the high-paying job. Okay, but to say yes to something like that, we have to say no to something else. And then, in your 40s, you're like, what would my 20-year-old self think of me? And at some point you're at a crux. So I designed a workbook that helps to walk the middle career physician through trying to reconcile those parts of ourselves that we've lost or that are maybe very fuzzy or not recognizable, but wanting to know, where am I? Where do I want to be? And how do I want to reconcile those pieces, along with maybe everything has completely changed, but I want to honor where I have been, where I am, and where I want to be. So I put together a From Loss to Legacy, Renewing Your Sense for Self workbook that is really self-paced, and I find can be very helpful for those types of questions.
I love it. I think the images are really powerful that are in there, and I love the pace of it. I don't think it's too much to do at once, and I think you really honor the fact that people will take some time with each page and be able to kind of build. And there's so much value in just taking a minute, like you said, in mid-career, just like, where am I? Is everything where I want it? Is what was important to me then is important to me today? What actually is important to me today? And that's what we did in our WAG. We, nail down our current values and what are our priorities, and then how to put them in our week, make sure that they're in our week and that they are driving our decisions, what is important to us. Like you said, a lot of times that does align with what we do at work. And if it doesn't, it's easier to know what to say yes or no to, and where are you going, and take a step toward where you are going. So I love what you built. I'm so impressed and just proud of it. I think it's just really going to support a lot of people, like your podcast does, The Worthy Physician. I think that also supports people. They could be on a walk or run and really, get your like powerful, peaceful messages of getting back to know who you are, and make sure that if you feel something's lost, I like the word fuzzy, is it fuzzy? Like sometimes it does feel fuzzy, right? Like I don't have time to kind of stop and put my finger on it. So what do you think, like during your working with your workbook, I think people will get rid of that fuzziness. What do you think?
That is definitely the goal.
Yeah.
I do believe that you will get rid of the fuzziness. At least it'll be a lot clearer and less fuzzy. Yeah, the whole idea is to work through it step by step, because we started at chapter one, where you're kind of defining things, and then you define core values, and then going through, okay, what have I lost? What have I gained? And I think it's really important to describe that, because we're setting kind of mental figures, if you will, or mental boundaries of where we want to be, and not necessarily that we have to have all materialistic things in this. That's important to you, fantastic, but we're also talking about the not untangible things, and kind of going back to the existential questions that really, what's driving me.
I love that. Good morning. Good morning to all your children. Um, yes, yeah, no, I love that. I love that resource for folks. And so we will link it to the show notes so folks can check it out, see if it's something they want to purchase and start on. And like I've had people say, like, it feels like life is flying by. I'm just not sure I'm doing what's really important to me. So I think like something like this is a great opportunity to take some time and really dive into it. So thank you for creating it. It's just really, I think it's really going to serve people like your podcast does as well. So thank you. Because I know it's hard because you took time away from those cute little things that you got over there.
Yeah, but the thing is, thank you for you, because during your WAG group, and I would highly encourage it, the accountability group. It
Thank
was
you.
it was the brainstorming, it was the support, it was the accountability that made sure this came to fruition. So thank you.
Thank you. My gosh, I'm honored. Okay, everybody, we'll say goodbye because I think our kids are hungry for breakfast. Right? Any parting words from you or your sons? Right?
Have fun. Life is short. Make sure you do
Yes.
what you love.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sapna, for sharing your time. So proud of you. Have a good one and hug your kids. We'll see you next time, okay? Okay. Bye.
Bye. Oh,